Welcome to The Circle of Trust, honest insights and proven strategies for predictable law firm growth.
Welcome to Circle of Trust, honest insights and proven strategies for predictable law firm growth. The podcast where ambitious law firms learn how to grow with confidence, clarity, and consistency. I'm Evan Mack here with Keith Dyer, law firm CMO and founder of Lexgro. Keith helps practices across the country move beyond referrals and guesswork to build real, sustainable systems for growth. On the show, we get honest about what works, what doesn't, and what your firm needs to do next. No fluff, no hype, just proven strategies and straight talk to help you scale without losing your mind or your values. Let's get into it. Keith, how are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you doing today?
Awesome. Let's get down to it. It's like, why are referrals alone not sustainable strategy for law firm growth?
I just think typically they're not as consistent. Um, they're not predictable. They can be, but that's usually when you're doing marketing to get more referrals, if that makes sense. So, just relying on referrals alone can be sporadic and it can be a little unnerving for firms because they don't know necessarily what the revenue is going to be from one month to the next. Makes it hard to do financial projections, makes it hard to get loans, things of that nature, because you just don't know what the consistent revenue might be.
So what does a reliable marketing system look like in your framework?
I think it's one that combines the right budget expenditures on outside marketing and knowing how much to devote to digital marketing, knowing how much to devote to traditional marketing. There's a reason why law firms do billboards. People say, "Oh, that's so silly," but everyone does them everywhere. There's a reason for that. So when you combine that kind of marketing with the digital, and you've got a consistent spend and a consistent process, and you've got a great intake department, and you provide a great experience for the clients, then you get more referrals. Referrals are the lifeblood of a law firm for many reasons. It's just you've got to have a system that creates consistent referrals and consistent clients. So the marketing alone can create clients and the referrals create clients. When you have this all down, then your cost to acquire a client begins to drop because the referrals are free, or at least they seem free, right? They're free in our immediate calculation. You know the cost of your marketing. So you just kind of balance all this and create a system that works for you. It's a lot easier said than done, which is why I guess my company exists.
Do you still find that old school way, the billboards way of marketing, is it still work? Is there still people that respond to that as opposed to the digital world that everyone seems to be shifting to?
Yeah, so I think this is a really great topic, and I'm glad you bring it up. Thank you. It absolutely still works, or people wouldn't keep doing it. If you see the biggest law firms in the country, like a Morgan and Morgan or Jacoby Meyer, they all still do these kinds of methods because it's very difficult to build a brand strictly through digital marketing and social media. I'm not saying that can't be done for certain types of businesses. It certainly can, but for law firms, it's a little bit harder. People aren't as interested in what's going on in law firms as they might be a consumer type product, right? So it's hard to build a brand around it. So you have to just constantly remind people that you're around. So when you buy billboards, I'm just going to use billboards as an example. We could insert TV or radio. They all have their place. And I can talk about that more. But when you have billboards going and you're buying them around town and I'm seeing them every day, all the time, the point is to be remembered before anybody ever searches for Google, or when they go to Google to search when they've been injured or they have an estate planning thing they want to take care of, whatever, a trust or will, or an immigration, you want them searching for your firm, right? So
Right.
Whenever the idea is that, I remember those guys. And then so they're going to Google and searching your firm. So that's sort of the goal that you want instead of just being one of the choices when people search, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have to work together. The digital and the traditional have to work together.
Right.
Because what happened is you can do a lot of traditional and you're failing in your digital. And when they go to search, they can't find you or they don't see what they want to see.
Right.
And the lead is hijacked by another firm.
Okay.
Take it. right? So it's got to be a combination. I've made the mistakes in my career of going into a market. Maybe we're trying something where we would do only traditional marketing, and it just the results just don't work the way they're supposed to. We just live in a world where you've got to piece all of these things together and really sort of deconstruct how someone buys your service or product, right? What the process is they go through. And so when you understand that process with clarity, then that's when you begin your marketing.
And circling back to the reliable marketing system, like, can you break down the key elements of that system for our listeners?
Yeah, I sort of just did. I mean, you want to be branding yourself.
Right.
The digital is the most important piece. If I were going to start a law firm from scratch,
Right.
I would build my intake team first, the people that are answering the calls, make sure that they're really skilled, they have a great compensation structure, they know what they're doing, because I can pump all the leads in the world into the firm, and if they're not converting them, then we're just wasting money. The next step I would do is to build my digital marketing, my SEO, potentially pay-per-click, LSA, YouTube, things of that nature, so that people, when they're searching, when the existing demand in the marketplace is searching. So, like at any moment, we could come out here and there are people that need estate planning lawyers. They need personal injury lawyers right now. You want to be found when they go to look for you, right? So that's a key element that you have to have in place. And then beyond that, you build your brand. The brand pumps into the digital. These things begin to optimize, and really the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So firms are really cooking whenever they've got all these things working at optimized levels. And that's really what we're all about, is helping them understand what to optimize and how to grow a firm. That's what we do.
Awesome. So how should firms think about balancing short-term wins with long-term visibility?
Well, short-term wins are going to come from optimizing that existing demand in the marketplace. So
Okay.
you're going to get cases. The fastest way to cases is to optimize that, and to, I think, also to get in touch with your community, and that so people see that you're a part of where you live, and you care about the community and you're giving back. That stuff goes so much further than people realize. And sometimes there's just lawyers that don't have the personality to do that. But you're going to get your short-term wins from those kinds of things, I think. The networking on the personal side, and then having a really strong digital presence. Those are your short-term wins. Your long-term wins are going to come when you got all that figured out to an extent. You got a lot of that going well for you. Your firm's established. And then you say, okay, let's go out and build our brand to be the go-to law firm in this market for our particular practice area, or our niche within a practice area. That also happens, right? Sometimes you want to just be known as you know, uh, the car wreck lawyer, or only the truck wreck lawyer, or whatever, because then you're building off of something that makes you unique. But
Right.
when you do that, you can really build more your content and your brand, because you're very specific about who you're serving.
Am I wrong to say is the most advertisements I see typically, no matter where I've lived, is accident lawyers? Am I wrong in saying that, as far as like billboard advertising? I see that so much.
That's exactly what it is. It's really interesting too, because I think what happens with a lot of the other law firms, a lot of the other law practice areas. So there's personal injury, there's workers' compensation, which is a form of personal injury, and then there's estate planning, immigration, criminal, family, bankruptcy, right? All those. I think those other. We'll get to the injury in a second. That is by far the largest advertising practice area. So you're definitely right about that. But there's an opportunity for these other firms that they just ignore. I'm like, they don't really take the bull by the horns. I don't see it as often, especially in middle and small markets. There's such an opportunity to be the go-to family lawyer or the go-to immigration lawyer, right? Um, it's just you don't see them advertised as much. To your point,
Mhm.
now the injury lawyers know that here's why they market. Okay, they have more money typically because they can hit on a big case.
Yep.
So they may get in 50 cases in a 3-month period or a month period, something like that. And out of those 50, you might get one or two that are exceptional cases that make a lot of money. And so kind of attracts the gambling mentality person, right? They are good at what they do, but they also are not afraid to put the money out there because they know that it will pay off.
Mm-hmm.
Had countless conversations with law firms that a long time ago failed to buy the large ad in the yellow pages, but it really is about money. You can still do well, but in that part of it, you got to have some financial plan. Meaning, that if you're in the injury world, some financial plan to be able to compete.
You might have touched on it earlier, but what role does intake and conversion tracking play in the system success?
It's the most important business role in the entire law firm.
Wow.
Well, think about it. Salespeople, and that's what intake people in law firms are. Salespeople kill what we eat, right? So if you ain't got no food, you're not going to survive.
Right.
That's how I look at it. So to me, it's vital. I would invest heavily in training my intake department. I would have a very tight system and redundancies to phone calls and really testing and making sure landing pages and phone calls are working all the time. We also help law firms with that. But yeah, to answer your question, man, it's extremely, extremely important. I knew a law firm once that the owners of the firm, the guys that had the law degrees, decided that for 1 year, instead of them actually practicing law, they would answer the phones.
Wow.
Yeah. And they did that because one, they knew they would have a really great year because they're into it, right? They're going to they know what they're looking for. They know how to get the right data. They know how to empathize and sympathize, which are the two biggest things that you have to have whenever you're an intake person. You have to be a real people person. But the lawyers have a vested interest in it. So anyway, they took that time and did it, and they built a great firm by doing that. They really understood intake. A lot of law firms don't even listen to their calls or know what's going on or could even imagine how bad it is. So the ones that fail are the ones that fail to get intake right. You're just bleeding money that you don't even realize you're bleeding because you're not converting as well as you should be.
So we kind of talked about different ways, firms can, advertise, and different ways firms can market and things like that. But how can a firm or a firm owner tell if their current marketing is actually working?
They need to have some sort of tracking going on their calls and on where cases are coming from. It's a team effort between the intake department and the marketing department to put together reports for firms every month, provide them some sort of a dashboard where they can go and see what kind of conversions going on. They can see what's happening, because if you're not tracking numbers, then you can't improve them, right? So we help firms set up those things all the time. We help them track them to know where the attribution, where cases are coming from. It can be a little bit difficult sometimes to tell exactly where cases each come from because of that scenario I told you about before, so I rode around and saw billboards for 10 years, but then I got injured, but I don't remember your phone number. So what am I going to do? I'm going to Google you. And so who gets credit for the case? Google gets credit, but the marketing had a massive contribution into it before it ever got there. So you can't. The point I'm making is you can't get too caught up in, oh, we only got 14 cases from TV. You're going to see 0 cases coming from billboards most of the time because there's such a top of the funnel sort of, make sure everybody knows that you're around kind of deal. But over time, they pay big dividends if the brand is built.
If you had to give somebody some advice, about if they're just kind of starting things out, when they're you back when you started out, what would you say? What would be the biggest piece of advice you would give them?
Optimize the intake and get the intake department set up very well. Optimize your digital marketing very well, and don't ignore your brand. Start building a brand.
Okay.
Those are the 3 things. Those are the 3 pillars. And of course, also to add into that is to make sure that you offer a terrific experience for them. Be a great lawyer. Communicate with them. Give them the results they need, just like any other business. Customer service, client service is a huge deal because you want them walking out of the law firm and becoming little marketers for you and bringing new clients back through referrals.
How do you know what your brand is? You know what I mean? I know you might know what you do, but how do you know? How do you get to that niche? You know, how do you find that? I find that being one of the most difficult things in any aspect. As far as, I don't care if you're doing social media, I don't care if you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor. Like, how do you know what your brand is in order to draw that person in?
That's a really great, insightful question, and I appreciate you asking it. You're obviously an intelligent person.
Thank you, sir.
Seriously, it's like that's a huge deal. So there is a process that we go through with any firm, and this is for any business. It's not just law firm. You want to understand what you are all about. When I say you, meaning you and your business. I'm going to put this strictly in the context of law firms because we're talking about law firms and lawyers, and that's what we do. So the lawyer got into what he did or she did for a reason, right? There's a reason they wanted to become a personal injury lawyer. So what is that reason? So one of the firms I work with is the bottom line is you've got to build out your mission, vision, and values, and then your company's standards, and that builds your brand because then everything comes into focus and you know what your brand is. So one of my friends is a lawyer, and his is to help accident victims recover mentally, physically, and financially, or something like that, right? So there's real simple like understanding of what it is. It doesn't have to be real complex. So once you know that, and everybody in the organization knows that, then you can build taglines and you can build all the things, and you'll know who your ideal client is, and you just build from that very fundamental introspection, and then pushing that through the entire organization so everyone knows what we are. When they know what we are, then they go out and they act that way too, right? It's all part of a mental, kind of, I hate to say this, but if you look back at like regimes or, that have been idealistic, they typically find symbols and they have things that represent
Right.
what they believe in, right? And so they use those to rally around, and that's what a brand is, really.
Wow, that's well said, actually. And finally, to wrap things up, what's one mistake to avoid when transitioning from a referral based growth?
I think the biggest mistake is law firms will oftentimes rely on people that say they're marketers,
Yeah.
but they've never grown a law firm, or it's just the wrong people, really. So don't trust the wrong people. Don't rely on the wrong people because you're going to be seeking advice and craving it.
Yes.
You're going to be craving coaching. So if somebody might tell you something that makes sense to you, but if it's not tried and tested and they don't have something to back it up, then I would be very wary about listening to those kinds of people because everybody has advice. And what I've noticed about advice is typically most people don't have enough understanding of your situation like you do to give good advice.
Wow.
Your mama and your daddy might give good advice. You want to listen to them, but even that you'll be wary of if you're an adult.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you got to make your own decisions, and good decisions are based in a lot of experience. You want people that have experience helping you. It's like if someone passed down a business to you, like let's say your mom built a great business, and I can use this analogy personally because my mom and I built our business together. We we started it together. But if you had a parent or who had built a business prior, and they came and said, "All right, little Keith, here's what you got to do to make this business great. This is how I built it. Here's all my mistakes." I mean, you're looking for that kind of coach.
Yeah.
All right. Not like, hey, we can market, and you don't ever want to turn the strategy of building your business over to an agency or someone whose interests are strictly in their realm. They're only looking out for themselves.
Absolutely.
That's the biggest mistake I see firms make.
Well said, Keith, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you all for tuning in to Circle of Trust. If this episode gave you clarity or sparked an idea, make sure you're following the show so you never miss a new drop. And if you're ready to build a predictable pipeline and scale your firm the smart way, Head over to lexgro.com or connect with Keith on LinkedIn and share what you've been working on. Until next time, keep growing with intention.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.